Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tucker, and we have another trade in the NBA. Now, as you guys know, even though this isn't a gigantic trade, I'm still going to talk about it. There are definitely things to talk about and what this could mean moving forward for the two teams involved. And as always, throughout the entire NBA trade season, if there's a trade, I'm going to talk about it. So if you guys enjoy the NBA, then consider subscribing. I upload basically every single day. All right, so the trade that we're going to talk about today that literally just happened, and I went ahead and hopped on and was like, hey, let's go ahead and get this video out. I had it planned for a different set of videos over the next few days, but those will be coming out tomorrow and the next day. So the trade to discuss here is Jeff Teague and Treveon Graham going to the Atlanta Hawks in exchange for Allen Crabbe. So let's talk about what this means for both teams. Again, this might not seem like that big of a deal, but every trade to me matters. Every trade means something, and I want to kind of unpack what this means for both teams. So let's begin with Atlanta. So this is a trade that definitely speaks to me in terms of, you know, the Hawks are trying to make some kind of move to at least show Trae Young that they're willing to get him some help. I don't think that Jeff Teague is a hugely impactful player for a team that's only won 9 games to this point in the season, right? Like, that's not necessarily a game-changing move for them, but I think it's more about the sentiment than anything else and what it says to Trae Young that, hey, we hear you. We want to make sure that we're getting pieces for you. We're still along our own timeline. We still have a long-term plan for this team, and you're definitely a part of it. But hey, we hear you. We hear your concerns. Here's Jeff Teague. And Jeff Teague is going to be a guy that he's, like I said, not going to be hugely impactful. Has had a bit of a down season in Minnesota, has even been moved to the bench, but he's familiar with the franchise, obviously having been there in the past on that 60-win team with Coach Bud back in the day. And he's someone that's going to be able to provide playmaking, some occasional shot making, and could be someone that could play alongside Trae Young or as a backup for him. Obviously, he's not going to start over Trae Young, so he could play alongside him or as a backup. And as we've talked about in the last couple of videos recently with the Memphis Grizzlies and the Oklahoma City Thunder, it is important to have guys like this on your roster during rebuilds that can, you know, provide some veteran leadership and some mentorship for your younger players, right? And that was something that maybe the Hawks were missing. You know, Allen Crabbe is you know, he's not young by any means. He's like 28 years old, so he still qualifies as a veteran, but this is a team that maybe needed a little bit more direction, and Jeff Teague could be able to provide that off the court as well as his contributions on the court. Again, they're showing, hey, we hear you, we know that you need help, and let's go ahead and you know, bring in a guy like Jeff Teague that could help this team. Again, they're 9 and something, so I'm not, you know, I don't really think that this is going to get them to the 8th seed or anything unless they go on an extreme tear and somehow Jeff Teague is really, really good for them. So it doesn't make a ton of sense in terms of, you know, trying to make their team better when they're already so bad. You might as well try and be as bad as possible. At least that's the mindset of a lot of teams and a lot of fans. But again, you want to make sure that Trae Young is happy, because most of the decisions that this Hawks team makes over the next handful of years are apparently going to be centered around Trae Young, making him happy and building a team around him that makes sense and complements him, because he is a player that, even though he's very good, you have to make sure you're building a team around him that fits properly and that maximizes his talents, which, by the way, is true for like 99% of the players in the NBA. That's not a slight against Trae Young. Most of the players in the NBA, you have to build a team around them properly, and it seems like they are going to try and prioritize that. And this trade especially makes sense for the Hawks when you're considering what they gave up. They're getting Jeff Teague and Treveon Graham, who can be kind of an okay wing. I mentioned him in our worst starters in the Western Conference video for Minnesota. The fact that he was starting for them was kind of ridiculous, but you know, he can make an occasional jump shot. He can defend pretty well, at least plays hard, and is just, you know, an extra body, and again, kind of a veteran mentor type guy. And they're getting both of those players in exchange for Allen Crabbe, who did basically nothing for them. I mean, when he played, he was playing like 19 minutes per game. He hasn't played in but like 28 or 30 games so far this season. His field goal percentage is not good. His three-point percentage is even worse. And everybody in the deal is on an expiring contract. So it's not like Atlanta is giving up any second-round picks. It's not like they're giving up any kind of long-term salary relief. They're basically saying, here, have this expiring contract of a guy that's really not playing that well for us, and we'll take a wing that could help and Jeff Teague. Thank you very much. That's basically the deal for Atlanta, which again makes a lot of sense. On the other hand, this is probably the part that I wanted to make the video about the most and that probably confused people the most about this deal. And that's the Minnesota Timberwolves side of this situation. Because you're looking at it, and I got the notification, and I thought probably what a lot of you guys did when you saw it, you're like, okay, what else is going to happen here? Like, what else is involved in this trade? There has to be more, because otherwise this makes absolutely no sense. Jeff Teague is the best player in the deal. Again, everybody is on an expiring contract. Jeff Teague is the best player in the deal, had a bit of a down season, has been moved to the bench in Minnesota, but still the best player by a pretty significant margin out of anybody in this deal. And they're giving up another player in Treveon Graham. Again, not hugely valuable, but still, why are they giving up 2 players, including the best one, in exchange for a player in Allen Crabbe that hasn't played very well, is theoretically a guy that can defend a little bit and make shots, but not someone that's played a ton of games over the last couple of seasons, and again, hasn't been playing all that well in Atlanta. What gives? What's the situation here? So the answer to that for me is a couple of different things. Why would Minnesota do this? There's one of 3 things. One, potentially this is we are all in on point Andrew Wiggins and just letting all of these wings create offense for us, and then obviously running the offense through Karl-Anthony Towns. And getting someone like Allen Crabbe allows them to have another shooter within their rotation so that they can play guys like Wiggins, Okogie, Culver, maybe Crabbe, and then Karl-Anthony Towns. And having all these wings, hopefully having guys that can create shots and create offense like Wiggins, maybe even they put Jarrett Culver a little bit more in ball screens and things like that. And they're removing Jeff Teague from that equation in exchange for a guy that theoretically could make shots for them and again is on an expiring contract. So that's the first reason that I could see for them making this deal, opening things up even more for some of these wings to really go all in on this idea of, like I said, point Wiggins or having Culver initiate more offense, and then you add an extra shooter theoretically in Crabbe. The other thing that's a possibility here, this hasn't been reported, this is 100% speculation, maybe there were some issues with Jeff Teague in Minnesota in the locker room. Having been moved to the bench, having not been as big a part of the offense as he had been in the past, maybe that was starting to create issues, and at that point they said, okay, well, let's just make sure that we get another expiring contract, we get a guy that's a wing that can fit with maybe this new lineup that we're going to experiment with. I think that's something you definitely have to consider. Again, that has not been reported in any way, that's 100% speculation, but when I first saw this, that was one of my thoughts. And then the third part of this is that maybe there are more trades coming for Minnesota, and this is just a setup for them. As of the recording of this video, there have not been any more trades, but this does technically open up a roster spot for this team. Now, they could have just cut a player to open up a roster spot and still done the Teague Crabbe thing straight up, but I'm sure there's some kind of financial incentive for them trading the player rather than cutting them. So this opens up a roster spot. They still maintain the expiring contract, the significantly large expiring contract in Allen Crabbe for later moves as well, just like they would have had if they had kept Teague. And at the end of the day, for the Timberwolves, it is probably some combination of those things. They probably do want to empower their wings to be a little bit more involved in the offense and removing Teague from that situation. There probably was maybe some kind of issue with Teague not wanting to come off the bench in Minnesota, even though in all likelihood he'll also be coming off the bench in Atlanta unless they're playing Trae Young and Jeff Teague together at the same time starting games. And then it also probably has something to do with opening up a roster spot and still having that flexibility to make more moves. My issue with this is, from an asset standpoint, Jeff Teague is still the best asset in the deal. And this would make more sense if they're getting like 1 or 2 second-round picks in exchange from Atlanta. They're saying, hey, we want to get help for Trae Young. Let's get Jeff Teague. Let's give up an expiring couple of seconds. Not a huge deal. We're not really giving up anything. It makes Trae Young happy, right? Like, that structure makes complete sense. But if you're looking at this as, oh, they're setting themselves up for future trades, then why wouldn't you keep Jeff Teague in that scenario? Because as players, Teague is pretty significantly more valuable than Crabbe. Not to a huge margin, not like Jeff Teague is an all-star or anything, but he's a capable point guard on a big expiring that other teams could potentially want. And like I said, they still have that big expiring contract, but that's the part of this that I'm really questioning. Like, I don't care if they just want to give away Jeff Teague, but if their plan is to make more moves, it would have made more sense to keep him, I guess. So at the end of the day, like I said at the beginning of the video, maybe to some of y'all this isn't that big of a deal, and it's like, why is this guy making a video about a Jeff Teague, Allen Crabbe swap? To me, every trade has value. There's a reason for every trade. These general managers do not just go around and be like, hey, I want to give away this guy. I want to give away this guy. I want to trade these picks. I want to do this. They all have a plan in mind when they make these moves. You can think as little of GMs as you need to, but they all do definitely have a plan in mind when they make these kinds of deals. And so it's important for me, at least, to sit down, to think about it, to try and break it down and say, this is why they're doing this. This is why they could be doing this. Maybe this is what else they're looking at. And again, maybe this is just set up for future trades, whether it is for Minnesota or even potentially for Atlanta. Maybe having this bigger expiring that's a better asset, like I said, than Allen Crabbe is something that's going to set up a move for them down the road. Who knows? But at the end of the day, like I said, I want to break down every single trade that comes out. Even as we get closer to the trade deadline, if there's like 5 trades in one day, I want to break all of them down. This is the stuff that I love, and hopefully that you guys enjoy as well. But like I said, my name is Tucker. I thank you all so much for watching. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. As I said at the beginning of the video, I planned on having a different set out today, but unfortunately that is going, or not unfortunately, just the way it is, that's going to be happening tomorrow and the next day. I'm going to be giving out some mid-season grades for both the Eastern Conference tomorrow and then the Western Conference the next day. Those are already recorded, those are edited, those are ready to go. I just wanted to do this kind of emergency trade video in place of them for today. But like I said, hope you guys enjoyed. My name is Tucker, and I will see you all next time.